Hi, and here's yet another isekai, this time about an unemployed guy. A 34-year-old loser gets hit by a truck and is reincarnated as a baby in another world, keeping his consciousness from his previous life. This is a true life-from-scratch situation in every sense. Our protagonist, Rudius, has to literally start from the basics, learn an unfamiliar language, adapt to local customs, and study magic. And honestly, it's a pretty cool concept, like playing an RPG game just without any choice in the matter. The world of Mushoku Tensei is huge, and as the story progresses, we get to thoroughly explore the lore and experience different locations. But for now, let's stick with the starting spawn point, the parental home where Rudius will spend a solid 7 years. Rudius's mother, Zenith, is a healing mage. His father, Paul, is a swordsman and adventurer. And not just an adventurer on the battlefield, he's had plenty of exploits with plenty of people, including the maid Lilia, and not only with her. By the way, Mushoku Tensei has no shortage of sexual relationships, and it's almost surreal how serene landscapes and cozy everyday scenes coexist with moments of sheer depravity worthy of a Hieronymus Bosch painting. In fact, the final arc is directly tied to the hero's erectile dysfunction. In short, it's a slice-of-life fantasy, but with a twist. Despite being given a second chance, Rudius can't fully let go of his past insecurities, and this becomes one of the main leitmotifs of Mushoku Tensei, the struggle with the worst version of oneself. Because of the bullying in his previous life, our hero is motivated to change. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure where such a spineless person suddenly got so much ambition and willpower from, but let's not dwell on that point. Rudius's first mentor is a demon mage named Roxy. She looks about 13, but is actually 37. Still, Roxy becomes one of the first crutches for our hero, helping him overcome his fear of leaving the house. She shows Rudius that it's not necessary to constantly look for mockery or judgment in other people's eyes. Most of the time, people are too busy with their own thoughts, like how to find a girlfriend, how to quit their beloved job with her, or what to do about the pants they just tore in the back. As for you and how you look, they honestly couldn't care less. You know, I used to be the same way as a kid, constantly stressing over how people looked at me, what they thought about me. It wasn't until later that I found that sense of inner freedom and confidence I'd been missing back then.
Rudius keeps growing, studying magic, reading old books, and this eagerness to learn is actually pretty well explained by Japanese cultural traits. In Japan, there's practically a cult of education because, unlike in many other countries, graduating from a good university, almost 99% guarantees a stable, well-paying job that will support you for life. That's why Japanese students push themselves to the limit from their school days and keep grinding away in the office until their hair turns gray. It's also why they like to drink, and their booze packs a crunch. The recently released Zom 100 Bucket List of the Dead illustrated this perfectly. But back to Mushoku Tensei, or rather to how Rudius slipped up. Even endless book cramming didn't help him recognize his new acquaintance. And that's surprising, considering that in his past life, Rudius was a sweaty gamer anime fan who had played through every eroge in existence. Well, almost. The elf girl, Sylphie, becomes Rudius's first romantic interest. Still, love has many facets, something Rudius will learn again and again.
For example, infidelity. Paul, Rudius' father, out of boredom, cheated on his wife Zenith with the maid. At the very least, that kind of situation is unpleasant. So Lilia gives birth to Aisha and Zenith to Norn. Now Rudius has someone to take care of. But for the moment, our hero has hit a ceiling. He decides to go to school, but there's no money. Still, there's a solution. Paul, Rudius' father, kicks his 7-year-old son out of the house to work as a tutor for a certain mysterious young lady. And this whole chapter will last a full 5 years away from home. Ah, yes, true fatherly love. And you complain that your parents don't love you. The mysterious young lady turns out to be Iris, a girl from a wealthy family whom our hero teaches math, dancing, magic, and what an aphrodisiac is, which surprisingly ends up being a true Chekhov gun in this whole story.
Along the way, Rudius even manages to save Eris from kidnappers, turning down a huge sum of money that would have easily covered his tuition. But our hero didn't do it out of some naive romantic impulse. No, in that moment, our sweaty anime nerd was guided purely by healthy self-interest. He knew that saving a rich girl would bring him far more profit in the long run. And it's worth noting that the first part of Mushoku Tensei is really just the introductory arc. It familiarizes you with the various characters, the lore of the setting, and the traditions and customs of the world. Basically, it's laying down the foundation, the base. Sometimes strange things happen, like evaluating a beast woman's backside, and sometimes it's the usual fare, like a royal ball. But the important thing is that you can see where it's going and why it's there, unlike in many other isekai where they just throw some dude into a vague, half-baked world and let him do whatever. You get unclear villains, no motivation, and in the end, it's a 5 out of 10, and of course, the sequel still comes out. Anyway, time marches on.
And so Rudius turns 10. On his birthday, he gets 2 gifts, a magic staff from Eris and a teleportation straight to the demon continent, courtesy of a massive mana surge. Well, let's just say the crayons I got for my 10th birthday don't seem like such a bad present anymore. This catastrophe affected far more lives than it might seem at first glance, but we'll come back to that later. For now, fate throws Rudius and Eris together with a Spurd named Ruijerd. The Spurds are the most dangerous faction in Mushoku Tensei, as well as a sharp political allegory. In Rudius's world, the Spurd tribe is a bedtime horror story for every child.
The Spurds are demonized and literally persecuted based on their ethnicity. Long ago, they were given cursed spears that eventually turned against them.
However, Rudius and Eris quickly overcome their fear and become friends with Ruijerd, who protects them on their dangerous journey across the demon continent. And the continent really is dangerous. You can die there at any moment. It kind of gives off vibes similar to the Dark Continent from Hunter x Hunter. Well, as they say, if you're gonna borrow from the greats. And just as dangerous as the demon continent is, it's equally rich in content and adventures.
After all, only here can you meet the Demon Empress, who grants you an eye that can see the future. Only on the Demon Continent will you encounter beast people who'll first throw you in jail for 5 days and then become your comrades.
By the end of the journey, some are reunited joyfully, while others face terrible tragedy. You know, I realized that Mushoku Tensei is also an anime about farewells and forgiveness. The characters are constantly being separated here. Sometimes the heroes shake hands fully aware that they might never see each other again. Other times, circumstances, like that teleportation catastrophe, tear them apart, with people losing entire families, being scattered to random points across the map. Some taken into slavery, others simply dying in battle or from starvation. Later, when Rudius reunites with Paul and grasps the scale of what happened, he'll understand that such disasters are always a collective, not just a personal tragedy. This realization helps him grow up. After all, the tragedy touched his own family too.
And while Lilia and Aisha are eventually found, Zenith's fate remains unknown. That gives Rudius a new goal, to save his mother, and he dedicates a significant amount of time to it. Along the way, he nearly loses his life and gets even more tangled in the mysteries of this world when he meets the dragon god, Orsted. But we'll get to that later. For now, there's another farewell, with Lilia, who returns home, and with Ruijerd, who sets off on his own journey. Both are incredibly important and dear to Rudius, and it's very symbolic that at their parting, our hero gives his sister the protector, and his balding friend a pendant, some of his most personal belongings. It's like tearing off a piece of himself and stepping into loneliness. Honestly, I think it's actually good that Ruijerd left this way, because usually characters of his type just get written off so the main hero can get stronger.
You know how it goes. Just look at Gurren Lagann or Naruto for examples. Well, at least Rudius still has Eris, but not for long. she receives terrible news. Her family died because of the catastrophe, and her grandfather was executed. The heroine falls into an emotional abyss, and to claw her way out and fill the emptiness inside, she offers to sleep with Rudius, and is not opposed, completely unaware of the deep pain his friend is hiding. The spilt wine, you know what it symbolizes. It's great that Mushoku Tensei knows how to play with different artistic devices, as we'll see again and again. The next morning, Eris leaves Rudius, and he's left completely alone. This is probably the coolest arc in the entire anime, Rudius's battle with loneliness. It's even directed differently from the rest of the show. Muted colors, melancholic music, an atmosphere of total emotional collapse. Well, the demon continent is behind him now.
New, snowing landscapes open up before us. The world of Mushoku Tensei is vast. The setting changes, and so do the vibes of the series. Rudius, now completely alone, connects with a group called Counter Arrow. Among the adventurers, he sees trace of Eris, that all-too-familiar feeling when you part with someone you loved more than life itself, and suddenly you see their traces everywhere. A part of you wants to start over, but it's unbearably lonely, and takes forever, and there's no guarantee you won't drift apart again. Later, when Rudius tries to sleep with his new acquaintance Sarah, he just can't. He's got reptile dysfunction. I get it. It's played for laughs, but credit where it's due. In real life, it really does work almost the same way. A man's potential is pretty tied to his emotional state. After a breakup, I personally went through pretty much what Rudius did, and it only passed after some time. It depends on the mindset, of course, but still. If I'd seen this anime 10 years ago, watching it might have saved me from stressing out so much about my own situation. It helps me realize that all these problems come from the head.
What's done is done. That's just the way life goes. Fortunately, little by little, Rudius manages to claw his way out of the emotional pit and finally starts to remember. Yes, it's hard. Yes, his heart was broken, but there are still people in his life he cares about and must protect. His mother, sisters, Roxy, and Sylphie. No matter how tough it gets, there's always a reason to keep going. The key is not to forget that. You always have something worth protecting, something to live for, fight for, and get back on your feet again. Whether it's a person or an idea, it doesn't matter. And now a new horizon appears before Rudius, like enrolling at the academy as a scholarship student. That's where he can learn tons of new spells and become a successful mage. And, well, if only. What Rudius really finds out is that at the academy, he might just be able to fix his non-standing. You know what I mean. Motivation, 10 out of 10. Still, at the academy, our hero reunites with a grown-up Sylphie, which is definitely something to be happy about. She hides her identity because she's afraid Rudius has forgotten her, which turns out to be a serious test of our hero's heterosexuality. And even though the strong action scenes give way once again to everyday life after enrolling, it's far from boring to watch.
At the very least, at the academy, Rudius meets a girl named Shizuka. Like Rudius, she was also transported to this world from Japan. Moreover, she was temporarily taken under the wing of Orsted, the dragon god who nearly killed our hero. The mysteries keep piling up. During his time at the academy, Rudius has battled the demon prince, captured beast people, and even made a puppeteer friend. He finally recognizes Sylphie as his childhood friend. Romance, jeers, another attempt to overcome his intimate issue, and another failure. Fortunately, the hero stumbles upon that very aphrodisiac that solves his problems. Rudius proposes to Sylphie, and with this happy note, the second season comes to an end.
However, there's no end in sight to these adventures. Well, that's all for today. There was a lot of info, but I hope you enjoyed a video in this format. If so, let me know in the comments. And really, tell me what you think about Mushoku Tensei, and which anime you'd like to see a review of next. Personally, I like this anime. Sometimes it feels a bit childish, but overall, it's really awesome. Thanks for watching, Sunshine. Cherish your family, stay strong, and never give up. We'll see each other again. Bye for now.